All right, guys, here we are for page 3. We're talking about exponents here for the final review. Our first question says how to solve 3x to the third. So real quick, if you want to remember with exponents, anytime you have an exponent to an exponent, you're multiplying. Anytime you have, exponents where they're being multiplied, you're adding the exponents. And anytime you have exponents where they're being divided, you're actually subtracting them. So just a quick reminder there. When we're looking at number 1 here, I have to take this 3 and distribute it as an exponent to both. So this is going to look like 3 to the third times x to the third. 3 to the third is 27. X to the third is just 3. My answer is A. Down here for simplifying the expressions, that's where we're going to need to look at these things that we wrote down. So if you want to write them at the top, that would be helpful. For here, my 4 needs to be distributed to everything. Okay, so I've got 2 to the 4th. Let me write that again for you. This is going to be 2 to the 4th times x to the 2 times 4 times y to the 1 times 4. 2 to the 4th is 16. This becomes x to the 8th, and this becomes y to the 4th. Here is my final answer for number 2. For B, I can start by looking at my whole numbers. -3 and 36. When I reduce that, becomes -1 on the top and 12 on the bottom. Now I have x squared over x squared. These are just going to cancel out, so they go away, and I'm left with x to the 3, x to the third on the top. Let me try that again. Y to the third on the top. We'll do this one more time for you. So I'm reducing -3/36. So that's going to be -1 over 12. My x2 minus my x2 or my x squared minus my x squared. Fractions I'm subtracting. 2 minus 2 is 0, which just becomes a 1 again. And I'm left with y to the third on the top. Another way you could write this would just be -y to the third over 12. For C, these are just being multiplied. So I am adding my exponents. So I've got x squared plus x to the 5th and y to the third plus the 4th. So this is going to be x to the 7th and y to the 7th as my final answer. Down here for D, I need to start by distributing my -5. So remember, when you have a negative exponent, it means it's going to be on the bottom. This is being distributed to both. So this would look like 3 to the 5th over -2 times -5 is going to be +10 because 2 negatives become a positive. And then over here, I've just got 4x to the third. 3 to the 5th. Make sure you can actually tell that that's an exponent. 3 to the 5th. When I plug that in my calculator, is 243. So this becomes x to the 10th over 243 times 4x to the third. X to the 10, I can also multiply with x to the third. Because they're being multiplied, these are being added. So I've got 4x to the 13th over 243. All right, jumping into E. This is going to be a lot of just combining like terms here. So notice my 3 in the front is going to be by itself, so that's just going to stay up top. Then I've got x to the -4 and x to the third. Anytime we have a negative, we can bump it to the opposite place to make it positive. So on the bottom, it's going to look like this. And then same thing with my y. To make that -5 positive, I can put it on the top. Now I need to combine. These are being multiplied, so I'm adding my exponents. So I'm going to have 3y to the 8th over x to the 7th. Over here with f, I need to look at my denominator where I've got this 2 that needs to be distributed to everything as an exponent. Okay, so I'm going to recopy over my numerator on the top and then distribute this guy on the bottom underneath. So -3 squared is going to be +9. X to the 4th squared is going to be x to the 8th. I'm multiplying. Y squared times 2, y squared becomes y to the 4th, and then z to the 1st squared becomes z squared. Now I can start moving things around. This x to the 12 needs to come to the bottom. So I'm just going to change colors for the next step. I also can reduce my -27 over 9. -27 over 9 is going to be -3. Then I've got my x to the 8 on the bottom and my x to the -12. +12 now because I moved it to the bottom. This is y to the 8. This is y to the 4th. I've got z and z squared. My -3 stays on the bottom. Let's combine some like terms. X to the 8th, this becomes a plus because they're being multiplied. So I've got x to the 20th, y to the 8th minus y to the 4th because it's being divided. 8 minus 4 is 4, and it goes on the top where the bigger number is. And then z to the 1 divided by z squared, these are being subtracted. 1 minus 2 would be -1, or 2 minus 1 is 1, and then that can just stay on the bottom. So this is my final answer for F. Down here for number 3, it's asking me to just write it in radical form. I'm not actually solving. Remember, this guy is going out in the front, and then this guy is becoming an exponent. So out in the front for square root would just look like the squared. The 2 is invisible. You don't have to write it. And then this 1 becomes the exponent. Over here, my 4 is going out in the front, and my 3 is coming down. So this is going to be 4 root 16 to the 3rd. This guy is coming out. This is going to be 3 root 125 to the 1st. Now this is a -1/3. So this is going to go out here. I'm going to have 3 root 2 to the -1. Down here for 4, this is saying write the expression as equivalent expressions without the negative exponent. So how can I make these negative exponents become positive? Anytime you have a negative exponent, you just move it to the other side of a fraction. So if right now these are in the numerator, so we need to move them to the denominator to make them positive. Same thing with this, we could actually simplify to be 1 over 9. This guy is just going to be 1 over m to the 4th. Here, we're just going to flip him. This is going to be 2 to the 3rd. Same thing here, we're going to flip him. This is just going to become 5 over 3 to the 1, which is simply 5 over 3.